as you probably have heard, and some of you have reported, a missile was launched a little while ago from North Korea. I will only tell you that we will take care of it. We have General Mattis in the room with us, and we've had a long discussion on it. It is a situation that we will handle.
But the bottom line is it's a continued effort to build a threat, sir, a ballistic missile threat that endangers world peace, regional peace, and certainly the United States.
Thank you, General, and we will take care of that situation.
That was the President. Secretary of Defense James Mattis responding to North Korea's launch of yet another ballistic missile earlier today. Here at the very latest in Washington, Ed Henry, 50 minutes,
well, Sean,
600
tonight,
miles
President
up.
Trump has now spoken to the Prime Minister of Japan and the President of South Korea to stay on top of this, because as you noted, missile experts say this is how big it is. This shows North Korea can now launch a missile that puts every single American city in its range. That's because while North Korea had previously fired 2 intercontinental ballistic missiles, this one went higher than the others. Shot off the west coast of North Korea, flew 2,800 miles into space for a total of 50 minutes. That's 10 times higher than the orbit of NASA's space station before falling just 280 miles off the shores of Japan. That led Vice President Mike Pence just a few moments ago in a speech to warn Pyongyang not to test this American president and this American military.
The Kim regime in North Korea would do well not to test the resolve of this president or the capabilities of the armed forces of the United States of America. As President Trump said today, we will take care of the situation. All options are on the table, and we will continue to marshal the full resources of the United States to bring economic and diplomatic pressure to bear until North Korea abandons its nuclear and ballistic missile programs once and for all.
And just a few moments ago, the president issued a warning to Democratic leaders in Congress that he does not want a government shutdown, tweeting that it is more important than ever that the military be fully funded. Sean?
All right, Ed Henry live in Washington tonight. Thank you. Joining us now with a reaction, Fox News national security strategist, former deputy assistant to the president, Sebastian Gorka. We've discussed in detail, not a lot of good options here. It's going to be take it off the pad next time, take it out of the sky as it's launched, and then potentially all hell breaks loose and we'd have to take out all their sites, correct? But great danger, great peril.
There is great peril, but in fact it's North Korea that has escalated the peril. And at some point the president will have to take action. Secretary Mattis has been very clear today. This is a direct threat to the United States, and we cannot wait until the next missile lands on U.S. soil, whether it's Guam or whether it's the continental U.S. There's 3 very special issues here, Sean. At some point, the credibility of the United States is put in question. The president has shown leadership, whether it's in Syria with the cruise missile strikes, whether it's the 21,000-pound bomb in Afghanistan. We need to maintain that credibility to assure our allies and our friends like Japan. Secondly, there's the issue of other regimes cannot be encouraged to behave the way North Korea is. This is a very, very bad example to set for others. And lastly, Sean, there has to be a cost for threatening the United States of America. I'm not an interventionist. I know you're not an interventionist, and I know, because I worked for him, the president is not an interventionist. But if you threaten us, if you're a tin pot bully, like the regime in North Korea and Little Kim, then sooner or later you will pay for your threats. That's where we have reached today, Sean.
But I would expect this is not going to be a protracted conflict. This will be massive and overwhelming, a use of force. But there's risks, nuclear fallout. If we hit their nuclear facilities, what is Kim Jong-un's reaction? Does he fire at Japan? Does he fire at Guam or Hawaii or South Korea, obviously, and Seoul?
Look, the United States of America is the most powerful nation on God's earth. It's the most powerful nation we have ever seen in American history. By comparison, North Korea may be a nuclear state, but it is Lilliputian. The president has said it. Secretary Mattis has said it. We will destroy you. And we're not talking about the North Korean people. We're talking about the regime. So we can do amazing things if We are pushed to do so. We don't want to. The president told me one day in the Oval Office, just the two of us, I do not want to go to war in Korea. But sooner or later, you make threats that are explicit and you must be dealt with. But it will not be nice. It will be the last resort.
Agreed. And not a favorable, but it will happen, and they will invite it at this point. Well said. Dr. Gorka, thank you. When we come
They went higher, frankly, than any previous shots they've taken. It's a research and development effort on their part to continue building ballistic missiles that could threaten everywhere in the world, basically.
That was Defense Secretary James Mattis commenting on the latest missile test from North Korea. The missile went 10 times higher into orbit than the International Space Station. The rogue regime claiming they now have the capabilities to strike anywhere in the United States. Let's bring in retired U.S. Army Green Beret Commander Michael Waltz. Colonel, thanks for joining us. So is this a game changer?
Well, the North Koreans have demonstrated now that they have the range to reach anywhere in the United States. If that missile had launched on a different trajectory, it could have reached anywhere on the continental United States. The next step is for them to demonstrate reentry capability, that the warhead can come back into the atmosphere and to miniaturize a nuclear warhead on top of the missile, and they're there. They have the ability to now hit us. So time is not on our side. They are marching towards that capability, according to our intelligence community, in the next year or two. And the other point I want to make is that they will continue to march even past once they have that capability. They're going to go to mobile launchers, which makes it harder for us to hit them. They're going to go to solid fuel, which means they can launch it faster without having to refuel on the rocket pad. They're going to go to submarines. They're going to go to multiple missiles at once. So we have to decide as a policy matter, how long are we going to give diplomatic and economic efforts with China and with the region before we decide we are going to stop the breakout capability and take it out through a preemptive
Well, there's
strike.
no doubt the clock is ticking and the threat is growing. And,
yeah.
Colonel, we just got the readout of the president's phone call with Xi Jinping of the People's Republic of China. On that phone call, the White House says the President Trump emphasized the need for China to use all available levers to convince North Korea to end its provocations and return to the path of denuclearization. What we heard before that is the president say he'll handle it. What do you think the president's strategy is?
Well, I'd like to see the president take this even a step further. Yes, we have to pressure the Chinese. The Chinese need to believe, and I think they do with this president, unlike his predecessors, that either you take care of it or we will. But I think there's other things we could do in the meantime. We can build an international coalition that also begins sanctioning internationally all of the Chinese entities that are continuing to do business with North Korea and truly ratchet up the pressure. We have to throw the entire kitchen sink at this thing, cyber, covert, a full range of diplomatic and economic efforts before we go to the preemptive strike, because at that point, we are either guaranteeing that hundreds of thousands of people in the region could die in a war, or we're betting and we're rolling the dice on millions of American lives, and I am not willing to take that bet, and I don't think this president is either. When
looking at some of the political response to this latest test, Senator Lindsey Graham warning we're headed to war if things don't change.
He's right. No, he's absolutely right. If we take the presumption that President Trump, and I think this is correct, will not roll the dice on a nuclear-tipped ICBM flying through the air when our ground missile defense in California and Alaska is only about 50% effective. If he is not going to allow that to happen, then either the Chinese are going to take care of it or we're going to take care of it militarily. And so far, we haven't seen the bold steps that we need to from China.
And as far as diplomatic and economic sanctions, as we watch them move forward